it's only happening in Long Beach right now as far as me doing something for the community, because that's where my heart lies at as far as straightening out my own neighborhood before I go elsewhere.
What would make Snoop Dogg one of the most untouchable figures in hip-hop, a man who survived homicide trials, label wars, and decades of industry chaos, risk everything on a secret $20 million deal that the FBI is now using against him? That's the question burning through the industry this week, as we've learned the legendary rapper didn't just buy music from Diddy's infamous archive. He allegedly purchased something far more dangerous: a trove of unreleased footage and documents tied to the freak-off gatherings, the private encounters that became the centerpiece of Diddy's recent conviction. And now, those files aren't just in the hands of investigators. They're leaking online, dragging Snoop into a storm that could rewrite his legacy.
You had day 17 in the Diddy trial as the biggest one yet. Guess what? Bingo, you won, because today was probably the most eventful day as far as things that happened that were said on the stand, and most importantly, things that the judge said, because Diddy almost got kicked out of his own trial.
The transaction itself was never supposed to see the light of day. Insiders describe it as a shadow auction, brokered through back channels just months before Diddy's arrest, with intermediaries linked to Suge Knight's network, a man who has spent years accusing Snoop of hiding secrets about Shakur's tragedy. The irony is brutal. Snoop, who once relied on death row's protection, may have just bought the evidence that could destroy him. These weren't random files. They were blackmail insurance, a last-ditch effort to bury what Diddy's inner circle called the vault. But the vault is open now, and the FBI isn't just reviewing the contents. They're treating Snoop's purchase as a potential act of obstruction. What makes this even more explosive is the timing. Diddy's recent sentencing, over 4 years for charges tied to those same freak-off events, was built on evidence from those gatherings. Prosecutors described them as orchestrated encounters where power, coercion, and recorded acts created a web of leverage. Now, the FBI is examining whether Snoop's acquisition was an attempt to suppress that evidence. Legal sources familiar with the case say the auction files include not just footage, but contracts, travelogues, and communications that could tie Snoop to a network far wider than anyone imagined. And if the tapes show what insiders fear they do, this isn't just about possession, it's about participation.
If you look at it, they committed fraud. They committed bankruptcy fraud. I didn't lose my company by doing anything wrong.
The auction's origins only deepen the mystery. This wasn't a standard transaction. It was facilitated through figures connected to Suge Knight, a man who has publicly claimed Snoop knows more about Shakur's final days than he's ever admitted. Knight, from his prison cell, has spent years dropping hints, most recently on his podcast, where he suggested Snoop's involvement in Shakur's tragedy was the conversation we still need to have. Now, with the FBI digging into the auction, those hints look less like prison ramblings and more like a roadmap. Meanwhile, Joseph Manzaro's lawsuit, the case that first exposed Diddy's freak-off operations, has taken on new urgency. While Manzaro's claims don't name Snoop directly, the FBI's interest in the auction files suggests they're looking for connections beyond Diddy's immediate circle. Manzaro's allegations are staggering on their own. He claims he was transported against his will to a 2015 gathering in Miami, where he was subjected to degrading acts in front of high-profile attendees. His lawsuit originally named Beyoncé and Jay-Z as witnesses, though those references were later removed. But the core accusation remains that Diddy's events were not just a private indulgence, but a system of control, with recorded footage used as leverage. Now, with Snoop's purchase of that very footage, the question isn't just what he knew, it's what he was trying to hide. And why, after decades of avoiding legal fallout, would he gamble on a deal this risky unless the stakes were existential?
So he got off like a fat rat in a cheese factory. But for a dude like Diddy going to jail and spending all that time, you know, I'm not saying it's going to be rough or nothing like that, because his former president of Bad Boy, Kirk Burrows, with the federal jail. You understand? Lil' Kim with the federal jail.
The legal fallout is moving faster than anyone predicted. Diddy's sentencing last month was a turning point, with the judge calling his actions subjugation and warning that his influence made him a persistent danger. But the real bombshell came when prosecutors revealed they had interviewed over 50 victims and witnesses, with more coming forward daily. Their case relied on financial records, travelogues, and, most damning, the videos from the freak-off events. Now, with Snoop's name tied to that same archive, the FBI is treating his purchase as a potential link in a chain of obstruction. If the files contain what investigators suspect, Snoop isn't just a buyer, he's a participant in a cover-up that spans decades. And then there's the Suge Knight factor. The former death row boss, currently serving a 28-year sentence, has spent years taunting Snoop from behind bars, most recently claiming he has proof Snoop's ownership of death row records is built on lies. But his latest podcast episode went further, suggesting Snoop's purchase of Diddy's archive wasn't just about blackmail, it was about survival. He knew what was in those files, Knight alleged, and he knew if they ever saw the light, it wouldn't just be Diddy going down. Knight's credibility is questionable, but his timing is impeccable. The FBI's interest in the auction files suggests they're treating his claims as more than prison yard gossip.
When you get to be the age that we at and you get to become as successful as we are, you have to start doing some things that matter for the future.
The irony is that Snoop's legal troubles were already mounting. Just last year, a Jane Doe lawsuit accused him of misconduct at a 2013 concert after-party, alleging he and an associate coerced her into private encounters under the threat of industry blacklisting. Snoop's team dismissed the claims as a shakedown, but the case never went away. Now, with the FBI examining his purchase of Diddy's archive, that lawsuit takes on new weight. Was it an isolated incident or part of a pattern? And if the archive contains similar allegations, how many more Jane Does are out there? The auction itself was a masterclass in discretion. Sources say it was arranged through a network of intermediaries, with payments routed through shell entities to avoid detection. But the FBI's financial forensics team has a way of unraveling even the most careful schemes. And the timing, just months before Diddy's arrest, suggests Snoop wasn't just buying memorabilia. He was buying silence. The problem: in the digital age, silence is a temporary commodity. The moment those files hit the dark web, the deal unraveled. Now, the FBI isn't just reviewing the contents, they're tracing the transaction, and that trail leads straight to Snoop's door. What's most chilling is how this connects to the broader landscape of hip-hop's darkest secrets. Diddy's conviction was built on the testimony of victims who described a system of coercion, where recorded encounters were used as leverage. If Snoop's archive contains similar material, the implications are staggering. This isn't just about one rapper's missteps, it's about an entire industry's complicity. And with the FBI now treating the auction as a potential act of obstruction, the question isn't just what Snoop knew, it's what he was willing to pay to keep buried. The psychological warfare between Snoop and Suge Knight isn't just a sideshow, it's the hidden engine driving this entire scandal. From his prison cell, Suge has spent years taunting Snoop, not just with veiled accusations about Shakur's tragedy, but with cryptic social media posts that seem designed to unnerve. Last month, he posted a screenshot of a 2023 agreement with the caption, "Show the proof of payment and I'll shut up. Bet you can't." A direct challenge to Snoop's purchase of Death Row Records. But the real gut punch came days later, when Suge dragged Snoop's wife, Shantae Broaddus, into the feud, posting a photo of her in Hawaii with an unidentified man and writing, "I'll pray your wife stop going to Hawaii with other men." The move wasn't just personal, it was strategic. Suge knows Snoop's weak spots, and he's exploiting them at the exact moment the FBI is watching.
The few like if we really dig, I believe we're gonna find probably 3 or 4 dudes over the years that she had long-term side piece type relationships with.
What makes this even more sinister is the timing. Suge's attacks aren't random, they're synchronized with the FBI's investigation. Legal analysts suggest he may be feeding information to prosecutors, either directly or through intermediaries, in exchange for leverage in his own appeals. One former prosecutor who worked on RICO cases in the 1990s told us that Suge's prison podcast isn't just entertainment. It's a negotiation tactic. He's signaling to the FBI that he's got more to offer, the analyst explained. And if Suge's claims about Snoop's involvement in Shakur's tragedy, or his knowledge of Death Row's darker operations, are even partially true, the FBI now has a roadmap to pressure Snoop from 2 angles: the auction tapes and Suge's testimony.
Then as soon as I walked out of there, I went in the bathroom and I threw up. And just laid on the floor for like 30 minutes. His mama came in there and cleaned me up.
But here's the twist. Suge's endgame might not be revenge. It might be survival. Sources close to Knight's legal team say he's been pushing for a reduced sentence, arguing that his cooperation could bring down bigger names. And if Snoop's $20 million purchase was indeed an attempt to silence Suge, it's backfired spectacularly. Instead of burying the past, Snoop may have given Suge the one thing he needed to stay relevant: a bargaining chip. The question now isn't just what's on those tapes. It's what Suge is willing to say to avoid dying in prison. And if he's willing to drag Snoop's family into the fray, there's no line he won't cross. The auction tapes, then, aren't just evidence. They're ammunition in a decades-long war. Insiders claim that Snoop's purchase wasn't just about protecting himself from Diddy's fallout. It was about cutting off Suge's oxygen. Death Row's archives allegedly contain more than just party footage. They include contracts, financial records, and even unreleased interviews that could implicate Snoop in Suge's most explosive claims. One industry veteran who worked with both men in the 1990s put it bluntly: Snoop thought he was buying leverage, but Suge was always 3 steps ahead. If the tapes confirm even a fraction of what Suge has hinted at, about Shakur, about Death Row's operations, about Snoop's role in all of it, they wouldn't just destroy Snoop's reputation. They'd rewrite hip-hop history.
We all know that. I have to say, I'd never heard of this movie, and I have little kids. It was called Lightyear from 2022. I have absolutely no problem with the content. Like, he had a problem with the content in that movie. I have no problem at all. I thought that was presented as a brief history part of this movie. It wasn't a big part of the movie, and couples exist, and marriage is legal, and I found it all completely unproblematic. That said,
and that's the real stakes here. This isn't just a legal battle, it's a fight for control over Death Row's legacy. Suge, even from prison, is still playing the long game, using the FBI's investigation as a weapon to force Snoop's hand. Meanwhile, Snoop's $20 million gamble has turned into a liability, one that could unravel not just his career, but the carefully constructed myth of his survival. The tapes, the lawsuits, the prison podcast, it's all connected. And as the FBI digs deeper, the only question left is, who's really in control? Because right now, it sure isn't Snoop. The final piece of this puzzle is the most unsettling. The files aren't just in the FBI's hands, they're leaking. Online forums and private channels have already begun circulating clips, with insiders claiming the full archive contains names that could topple careers. Snoop thought he was buying insurance. Instead, he may have just handed the FBI the missing piece of their case. And if the tapes show what the whispers suggest, this isn't just a scandal. It's the unraveling of a legacy. Because in the end, the real question isn't why Snoop bought the files. It's what he was so desperate to hide that he was willing to bet his freedom on keeping them secret. And as the FBI closes in, we're about to find out.
So why should I care? He did a whole lot to a whole lot of people. And now he's paying for it. So all these cats, I guess y'all get y'all visitation rights. Some of y'all can get y'all conjugal visits right with them.
The FBI didn't just seize Snoop's auction files, they're treating them as evidence in a conspiracy that could bring down more than just Diddy. Prosecutors, speaking on condition of anonymity, have confirmed they're examining whether the tapes include death row era footage, material so explosive it could rewrite the narrative of West Coast hip-hop's darkest chapter. This isn't just about Diddy's freak-off gatherings, it's about a network of silence, one that Snoop may have paid $20 million to preserve. And if Suge Knight's recent claims are any indication, Snoop's purchase wasn't just about protecting Diddy, it was about protecting himself. Knight's credibility is shaky, but his timing is impeccable. The FBI's interest in the auction files suggests they're treating his claims as more than just prison yard gossip. What makes this even more chilling is the psychological layer. Snoop's team thought they could control the narrative, that by buying the archive, they could bury the past. But the moment those files leaked online, the FBI had something far more valuable than rumors. They had a roadmap, not just to Diddy's crimes, but to everyone who paid to keep them secret. Insiders described the tapes as a blackmail vault, a collection of recordings featuring celebrities, executives, and industry power players in situations they'd never want made public. And if the whispers are true, Snoop's tapes include footage from a 2015 Miami gathering, the same event where Joseph Manzaro claims he was subjected to degrading acts in front of high-profile attendees. If that's the case, Snoop didn't just buy Diddy's secrets, he bought his own.
What's going to happen, but now there's an added element to this, an added element of drama. Diddy is going to speak. He has some things he wants to say to the judge, to the court, and he has actually filed a request with the judge that he can wear street clothes instead of his prison jumpsuit because he wants to look good for whatever it is he's going to say.
The legal jeopardy here is staggering. Obstruction charges are already on the table, but sources close to the investigation say prosecutors are exploring something even more serious: potential RICO ties. The theory that the auction wasn't an isolated transaction but part of a broader effort to suppress evidence across multiple cases. And with the FBI now interviewing former death row associates about the auction's true purpose, the net is widening. One former road manager who worked with Snoop in the mid-2000s told us off the record, "Those tapes aren't just about parties, they're about leverage, and if Snoop's on them, he's not just a buyer, he's part of the system." The manager refused to elaborate, but the implication is clear. This isn't just about one rapper's missteps, it's about an entire industry's complicity. What's even more damning is the alleged contents of these files. Multiple sources, including a former Bad Boy Records employee, claim the tapes aren't just footage from Diddy's gatherings. They're a ledger of compromising moments, recorded encounters involving some of the biggest names in entertainment. The employee, who requested anonymity, described the material as career-ending stuff, adding, "If even half of what's on there gets out, people are going to prison." And with the FBI now in possession of these files, the question isn't just what Snoop knew, it's what he was willing to pay to keep buried. Because if the tapes show what insiders claim they do, this isn't just a scandal, it's a domino effect. The most explosive rumor, that Snoop's tapes include footage from the same 2015 Miami event, where Joseph Manzaro says he was assaulted in front of LeBron James. Manzaro's lawsuit, which originally named Beyoncé and Jay-Z as witnesses before those references were removed, describes a night of coercion and humiliation, with recorded footage used as leverage. If Snoop's archive contains similar material from that night, the implications are staggering. It wouldn't just implicate him in Diddy's crimes. It would place him at the center of a system where private encounters were weaponized. And with the FBI now treating the auction as a potential act of obstruction, the legal stakes have never been higher.
He got let off easy. And don't get me wrong, bro. I don't want to see a black man in jail. I don't want to see a black man in jail. But I don't care nothing about Diddy going to jail.
Prosecutors are moving fast. We've learned they've already begun interviewing former death row associates, asking pointed questions about the auction's true purpose. Was it really about preserving Diddy's legacy, or was it about protecting a network of powerful figures? One source familiar with the investigation told us, they're not just looking at Snoop, they're looking at everyone who had a reason to want those tapes gone. And with the files now in the FBI's hands, the question isn't just what Snoop knew, it's who else is sweating. The psychological toll of the scandal is already visible. Snoop, who has spent decades cultivating an image of effortless cool, now finds himself at the center of a storm that threatens to unravel everything. His team has remained tight-lipped, but insiders say the mood is one of quiet panic. One industry veteran who has worked with Snoop for years put it bluntly. He thought he was buying insurance. Instead, he bought a one-way ticket to a federal investigation. And with the FBI treating the auction as a potential act of obstruction, the legal consequences could be severe. Obstruction charges, potential RICO ties. The list is growing by the day.
So she testified, excuse me, that she was Diddy's ex-assistant. She said he raped her, he assaulted her in various ways multiple times. He exacted unbelievable violence against her, threatened her, one point allegedly threatened to take her phone and use anything on the phone against her.
But the real bombshell is the tapes themselves. If the rumors are true, they don't just implicate Snoop. They implicate an entire network of celebrities and executives who may have paid to keep their secrets buried. And with the FBI now in possession of these files, the question isn't just what Snoop knew, it's who else is on those tapes. Because if the footage shows what insiders claim it does, this isn't just about one rapper's downfall, it's about an entire industry's reckoning. The final piece of this puzzle is the most unsettling. The files aren't just in the FBI's hands, they're leaking. Online forums and private channels have already begun circulating clips, with insiders claiming the full archive contains names that could topple careers. Snoop thought he was buying silence. Instead, he may have just handed the FBI the missing piece of their case. And if the tapes show what the whispers suggest, Snoop Dogg won't be the last celebrity in handcuffs. He'll just be the first. So here's the question we're all left with. If Snoop's $20 million wasn't just a purchase, but a pact, who else signed it? And as the FBI closes in, how many more careers will crumble before the truth comes out? One thing's for sure, the tapes don't lie, and neither does the law. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and remember, when the music stops, the secrets start. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your allegiances loose. Because in this game, the only thing more dangerous than the truth is the price of hiding it.